We are the Meltdown here with yet another episode reaction, this time to episode 5 of House of the Dragon Season 2. And after so much build-up, so many different battles that we witnessed there in episode 4, a little bit of a slower-paced episode here in episode 5. We pick up immediately following the death of Rhaenys and her dragon Malys, with injuries sustained by King Aegon II. I'm probably butchering these names. We've got Mr. John Lunsford, a name I never butcher, over here.
Thank you.
As the master of spoilers. We've got master of producers, Tyler, back there in the corner, along with Brian Pavlik making his debut here on our Game of Thrones reaction series. Lots to get into here. John, I want to start with you. Is Sunfire, the dragon of King Aegon, officially alive? Is that correct?
Yes.
We think?
Not to be the master of spoilers, but
yes.
I mean, yes.
Okay.
If they follow the book, yes.
Okay, that's all I needed to hear. We got a chance to see
Spoiler.
Corlys, master of spoilers. I mentioned it already. Corlys Velaryon, he is grieving the death of his wife, and it is, I thought it was handled pretty well in this episode. Tyler, how do you think they handled grief and capturing it here in episode 5 of House of the Dragon Season 2?
I think the feelings of grief and loss are something that Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon has always handled well and always showcased well. It just brings you just closer to the world. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Tyler,
there's a lot of it, and so you have to do it right in order to make all of the deaths actually mean something.
Yeah. We did not get a chance to hear from Brian Pavlik directly following the events of episode 4 of House of the Dragon. Real quick before we get deep into episode 5, what did you make of the ramifications of episode 4 that all the characters are dealing with here in this episode?
There were certain moments in the original Game of Thrones series where you just said all-timer after you watched the show. All-timer, all-timer. I even texted you guys, at the end of episode 1 with Blood and Cheese. Oh, that's an all-time ending and stuff. That whole episode, even though it really picked up the last 20, 25 minutes of stuff with the actual dancing of the dragons, was an all-time ending battle sequence, whatever you want to call it. The cinematography of it, the acting, the shots, and just the visuals, the triumphant nature at first, and the heartbreak. It was just such an emotional roller coaster, similar to Battle of the Bastards, the Wall episode, the blowing up of the Sept back in the original Game of Thrones episodes. So 4 was just impossible to match in this episode, and that's why it feels like it was a downer. But I think a lot of the character and pushing forward to the second half of the season was really fleshed out a little bit more in episode 5.
We know that the audience has very strong feelings, John, about Criston Cole and him as a character. Now we have the common folk having some very strong opinions as he's parading the head of Rhaenys' dragon around town, thinking that this would be something that they would look at with a celebratory notion, and instead they're saying things like, mark my words, this is the Black Omen, and I thought the dragons were gods, and there's a lot of uncertainty about what is to come in King's Landing. This is a huge misstep by Criston Cole, and something that you would have fixed really quickly if you'd still had Otto Hightower around instead of Criston Cole taking over the Hand of the King.
Yes, the Hand of the King is a role, or Hand of the Queen, whoever that role is for good or bad, black or green, Lannister or Targaryen in Game of Thrones, whoever it may be, that they really have to be the one, kind of like a chief of staff, I guess, would be for a president. Like you're one kind of helping really lead the charge.
You have to have clear vision.
You have to be able to make the same decision. The tough decisions you think about with a ruler, you have to actually be able to make those decisions. You may not have the power to ultimately do whatever, but you still have to make those decisions. And Otto, like him or hate him, was a smart Hand of the King. Tyrion. That's the
nicest thing you've ever said about Team Green.
I mean, he's manipulative, but he does it the right way, and he is ultimately a bad guy, but is a good bad guy, which you have to have. Tyrion, his time spent as a hand in Game of Thrones, I'd say a lot of the same things. Like, ultimately a good guy, but very smart and be able to make the right decisions. Criston is not that at all. He wasn't as just, being a member of the Kingsguard. He wasn't as the leader. He wasn't as hand. He's not ever. I'm just not a Criston guy, and everything he does seems to be stupid. But it all has led to his king potentially dying, and luckily for them, he's not dead. But Otto would not have let that happen. And I think the line of I thought dragons were supposed to be gods isn't necessarily because they're talking about hey, Rhaenyra's gonna react to this. She's gonna come. But by the way, all the dragons that we're riding, including Vhagar, which seems to be the dragon of all dragons, they're not gods. They all can die. Yeah. And anybody, not that people at King's Landing witnessed it, but we witnessed it. Even Vhagar, got a little beat up in it, even though ultimately he ended up winning.
It broke people's belief system.
Right. And on all sides of this war and lets dragons are powerful, but they're not the end-all be-all part of this war.
Cole thought it was going to reassure beliefs of the people, saying, don't they realize we won the battle? And then you have Gwaine Hightower saying,
Rockstar
strange victory.
I represent Rockstar here.
Strange victory if it was one. I'm starting to like the balance of Kristen Cole and Gwaine as they go back and forth, and it's never going to feel normal saying Gwaine, but I'm going to continue to say it.
Yeah, I've seen better on-screen duos, but who threw the better PR parade? Otto or Kristen Cole?
Otto, for sure.
Otto.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Keep going here.
Right. If it's against Kristen, I'm going to take anybody against Kristen.
Well, and that was my point. My only takeaway from this episode with Kristen Cole and his little skirmish, emotional distancing of Allison there while he was cleaning, his sword with a lemon.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the little verbal confrontation was, if we thought the getting it on scenes with Allison were good, wait till Kristen Cole and Aemon, because, now he's the hand of this king. I don't know.
Okay, well, that's, I hope not spoiler territory there.
No, it's just...
We can tell you're a Laris fan. Let's talk with...
He's hard to defeat.
Defeat. We have... Tyler, who's going to react to
I don't know how to react.
I'm going to give you a whole different
bring it back. Sorry for that visual.
Bring
it on back.
This is why Brian is not leading this small council.
I won't be invited back.
In the Red Keep, we have King Aegon transferred from a crate that was covered with some blankets. It looked like a poor U-Haul job.
No, you know what it looked like? Have you ever been to the Birmingham Zoo?
Yes.
The back area with the rhino. There's the rhino was carried in this crate, and you can look at the hole. That's what it reminded me of. It's like they're bringing in the new rhino at the zoo.
And then the rhino reminds you of Gladiator 2, which is coming out in November.
All right. Sorry, Tyler. Here's your time.
No, you're good. King Aegon transferred from that rhino crate to the bed with his body charred, his skin still attached to his armor as they pull it out and pull it across his body. The maesters are getting to work there. What did you think of the... execution of that scene, because it really did put into perspective just how banged up King Aegon is after taking direct hit from Aemond.
Oh, he looks gross. It really just let it all sink in. Like, oh no, he didn't just get hit with a little fire. He didn't get burned. He got completely charred and melted and is somehow still alive, and they've got to try and nurse him back to health, I guess. I don't know.
John,
it kind of just looks like Aemon's going to take over.
After seeing the way the Maesters handled Season 1 with all of their different remedies, I'd probably just rather the fire take me out than have the Maesters pick.
You mean you wouldn't want those
PF
Chang lettuce wraps on you?
Just not the most
or have like
sanitary
maggots eat the burned flesh or something.
The Maesters get it wrong 9 out of 10 times.
After having watched, nine and a half now seasons of this world, I don't want Maesters touching me with anything. And I get it's a different time, but... this is the kind of thing that when he fell out of the sky, it's like, oh, he's dead. And then Master of Spoilers had to look ahead, and it's like, wait, he's not? And now I'm seeing he's not. Yeah. But boy, he probably should be based on everything that I'm seeing.
Do we think Allison is genuinely concerned about the health of the king, or she's just thinking about the game that's being played?
I think she's starting to realize how to play the Game of Thrones. We talk about how John always likes to play the triple threat trivia, and you got to have a strategy. I think she felt she was in a good position, and I see this with Rhaenyra as well. I think they just felt like they were inherently going to be in this position. They did not play the game. They kind of let the game come to them.
There's no doubt there's two sides of Allison here, right?
Yes.
At the small council, she's playing power grab.
Right.
But at the bedside of her son, do you find that to be she's genuinely, compassionately worried that he's going to die?
I think she is genuine because I think she realizes her best chance at power is him being king, not Aemon being king.
Someone she can't control.
Right. And everybody else on that small council now she can't control. But when Aegon's king and he kind of doesn't know what he's doing, she can step in. Well, I'm the mother. I'm the one that was around Viserys, so I can give you the wisdom that he had, which is why she very much said, you're king, but you need to let everybody else, kind of help guide you. That's what they're there for. And Aemon ain't going to do it. And really nobody else on that council really seems to be able to stop and, hey, I'm going to hear what she has to say. No, they skipped right past her.
I'm going to ask Pavlik your perspective on Aemond here in just a little bit at the small council.
Absolutely.
Actually, you know what? I'm probably going to ask your perspective on Larys at the small council here in just a little bit because you are a fan. But Sir Criston Cole and Allison, is it an official breakup or you think that they're going to be getting back together in no time?
I think Sir Criston Cole is the only body that is there for Allison, and he knows that will allow him to maintain a little bit of power. Not that he doesn't have power, obviously, as the hand of the king, but that is something that can easily be stripped at any point if the king or queen, whoever is in charge, decides to do so.
Normally, it's Sir Criston Cole's white cloak that's getting stripped.
But I said he is still a body that is there because
that was a good one.
She is not married anymore. Her husband has died. She is just there. She clearly, as we have seen with the first half of the season, has certain needs that need to be met, and literally nobody is there except for Criston. So she, I think, knows, hey, I'm not happy with what you're doing, but I need to keep you close, and I think he ultimately is probably playing the game the same way that, look, if Aemon's in charge, I'm going with Aemon, but I'm not totally out of your corner yet.
Sir Criston at least backs it up, talking about we have given the war to the dragons. The dragon riders should be the one to lead us. He's at least trying to rationalize it. Larys hasn't really been asked to rationalize anything, but he very strongly, he does say that a man should lead at this point, that the people would respect that more for sure. Is it as simple as that? Because it feels like he's been laying the breadcrumbs to turn on Allison all season long.
Larys, as we have seen this is now the third episode in a row where we've heard where he's taken his fortune and transferred it. So Larys looks after himself, and Allison is a means to a bigger game. And it is so strikingly familiar to us in the casting of Littlefinger, Peter Baelish from the original Game of Thrones, where you've got this guy who's got a little bit of power, a little bit of money, and a lot of desire. And he's got a lot of inroads to play his own Game of Thrones. I don't know if Larys is actually thinking about the throne in general or if he's just looking to save his hide, but so far he's doing a great job. The next obstacle here is getting on Aemon's side. Why? Aemon has the male influence. He's got the power. Oh, by the way, he's got a dragon, and also he's got Vhagar.
And in the words of Littlefinger, chaos is not a pit, it is a ladder.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Tyler Lionel Johns, Aemond, his sort of mindset as a leader, how dangerous has Team Green become for not only the opposition, but internally with somebody as impulsive as Aemond now sort of leading the charge?
Extremely. Aemon's already shown to be able to plan out military campaigns, and he has a lot of desires. He's got a lot of knowledge.
He's ruthless.
And is absolutely ruthless, has no boundaries, nothing stopping him from just taking it all the way. And so I wonder if Aemon may try to ascend to the throne quicker.
Does the Hugh Hammer storyline intrigue you at all, John Lunsford, giving the perspective of those living within King's Landing?
It has not until Master of Spoilers came into play, and now it does. And that actually happened last week, kind of looking ahead at did Aegon die? What happened to Sunfire? That post-battle look at the future of oh man, what just happened? I'm really curious. I want to see. And so looking into the book, then it's there's certain names you've heard. I complained for the first half about, this person just randomly popped in here. This person just randomly popped in here. I hate that. What's going on with that? I now know where it's building to, and so there's a reason they keep showing him. It's not just I don't like that. They need to quit. They need to get off this guy. They're on all these people for a reason, and that's, I think, finally starting to get moved forward this time with him trying to leave, him having to come back and everything that, there's a little bit of a storyline playing out there that we need to pay attention to.
And it does show the importance of that scene where the Gold Cloaks are guarding the gates people trying to show up to retailers to buy NCAA Football 15, which they were not allowed to do. And thankfully, we do have a copy of the game. But what will happen there at King's Landing? There's a lot happening now with Mazzaria.
she has every contact in the world, seems like, because she got Daemon in perfectly fine. They close the gates, and she gets this spy in perfectly fine. She still seems to have every gold cloak on her side to where it's like, I can do whatever I want to, so I'm going to influence that a little more, and who knows what she can do moving forward. Yeah.
Is she the Varys of this version of Game of Thrones?
I've tried to compare everybody because I feel like Larys is very much like a mix. He's probably like 60 to 70% Littlefinger, and then like a 30%
The creepiness
Varys, because
of
Varys was a
and-
master of
yeah.
whispers and stuff like that. So like from inside King's Landing, how Varys was, there's a little bit of that, and then I kind of switch the percentages for her. More Varys, still a little Littlefinger kind of going for. Also with some of the witch side of her as well. That
Melisandre.
you kind of have to take pieces. You can't just say, "Oh, that's the Littlefinger. Oh, that's the Tyrion. Oh, that's the whatever."
I think the Melisandre of this is the actual witch that's in the show. Damon's losing his mind, Tyler.
Oh, yeah.
He's
that's
at
a good point.
Harrenhal.
I'd still never know what's going on in
I don't
Harrenhal. I don't know what to
needs to
think
get
of
up on
it.
out of there.
Connecting the Larys and the Harrenhal. You know how Daemon has the opening at the bottom of his door?
Yes.
Yeah.
That had to have been Larys's room because he could see everybody's feet walking by. It had to be.
I agree with you. She needs to put some hotel towels there to
Yeah.
barricade
That's
that up.
I think every time it's like, put some blankets or something. You have to have something. I know it's back in the day, but you got to have something you can cover
Right.
that door
But
with.
John Damon, a character that you find to be very fascinating,
I did.
is having problems solving problems because he can't do it with brute force. He's not a politician. Damon has proven he's not a very tactful politician when he needs to be. He simply knows how to cut off people's heads or order other people to cut off people's heads, and it's bit him this time. He's gone a little bit too far because now you have the Brackens and Blackwoods fighting each other to the bitter end in a dispute that has outlasted him a long time that he can't possibly wrap his head around. They're just built to hate each other, and he thinks he can just swoop in, intimidate with his dragon, and he's going to be able to solve everything. And it backfires immensely against him in what seemed like a nightmare sequence that was blended with actual events that were transpiring.
Of course, I still have no idea what is actually happening because of that. I did like the scene of him saying, basically bow to me because I'm king, and they said no, and turn around, and the dragon's head comes down behind the horse, kind of blurred in the background.
Yeah.
I love that scene.
Yeah, it was cool.
The imagery of that scene, but his whole madness storyline, and that's one I haven't really looked forward much with him. That it's starting to drag on a little much, and there may be a lot more, I don't know, but because I've kind of looked at the bigger picture aspect of like getting to the next battle, who's going to be a part of it, all that kind of stuff. But his whole storyline is interesting, and it's made me not as into him, the character, anymore, because it's very different than the character we saw in the first season. And I mean, him having a scene with his mom last night, I mean, it's every time that
We're disgusted by that, but we don't care about the other incest that
Well,
has been around for
Well,
10
John put it
seasons.
as like one of the top things on his list
I'm not.
of things he liked about
I've
House
lost
of the
control
Dragon.
of this show. There's no way for me to segue out of this. John, any comment before we move on? That's where we'll
I don't
leave it.
know what's happening.
Life's a witch. All right. We have a situation as well where Aemond shows up. He's looking at the throne. He's sort of imagining what it's going to be like to sit on
powerful.
that rusty sword, squatting,
The tetanus throne.
just absolute mess. And then Helena shows up and says, was it worth the price? And I thought this was a really strong scene. She always seems to just sort of be lingering around knowing way more than everybody else, but having no one to really talk to about it.
She's like little Gamora in the Avengers, where it's like, what did it cost you? And Thanos is like everything. It's kind of creeping in there. Oh, what are you doing here?
This is going to get into all kinds of fun theories here. As far as what I know, reading all the history of this world of Westeros, weren't the Targaryens? Couldn't they see the future, or some of them had this gift of foretelling or things of that? And I think this is kind of playing into that. I'm not going to go so far as to say she was a previous incarnation of the three-eyed raven, as Bran was, but
You
it
could
just
see it, though.
it seems like that's why she wasn't as uncontrollable when her son was beheaded, and it seems like she's stoic, and that's giving off those Bran vibes of, yes, this is playing out
she's also
just as I've seen.
out of sight, out of mind a lot. and she's sort of able to sort of linger around, not as a threat to anybody, because she doesn't have any connections, emotional human connections,
and that's why
even with her husband,
it makes me think that maybe she's seen this before, visions, dreams, or something like that, and maybe that's why she picks those spots. Okay, there's going to be no one around Aemon. I'm going to throw this zinger at him, make him think, and then I'm just going to slink back into the darkness and wait for the next historical moment.
Meanwhile, John, you have Jace going around going, I want to be a real boy, and he's decided that he's going to go meet with the Freys, and he makes a bunch of promises that he didn't get authorization to make, which, by the way, the main Frey guy, I don't remember his name, looked like a dead ringer for your dad, I thought. If you look at it, if you go back and look at it, it was like a dead ringer for Tim Lunsford.
on the twins.
But anyway,
I got to go back and look because I didn't necessarily think that, but okay.
You should look at that. Jace promises the Freys exactly what they want, which is the protection of Rhaenyra's dragons along with Daemon's, as he agrees to their terms and tells them in return Rhaenyra will require one more thing for such a prize, bent knees. And it looks like they're going to get that, but I have a feeling the Freys, that check that they just got is not going to end up cashing when they decide to go deposit it, that there's going to be some big miscommunication here, while Jace thinks he's just absolutely this political genius that Daemon has proved himself not to be.
And, of course, promising Daemon's protection without talking to Daemon because he's off having an acid
That's a
trip.
good idea, right?
Yeah, he's off having his own acid trip at Harrenhal. Also promising him Harrenhal that is in a total state of disarray, and I know he's trying to repair it right now.
Daemon has no loyalty to Jace.
No, because it's not his kid. It's
he wants to be the king anyway.
Everybody still questions who Jace's dad even actually is.
I think we know.
I mean, we know, but I'm saying the people of
not to mention, this is a promise to the Freys. We know how that plays out.
Absolutely,
Tyler. Don't
well
promise
done,
the Freys
lovable
anything.
companion.
You
Don't cut a deal with them.
Never want to do that.
No, which is what I pointed out last night, that every time a name pops up, it's like, I remember that name from Game of Thrones. But, yeah, a lot of promises there. And Jace, now having been told, I assume that conversation continued after they cut it off from last episode of being told, hey, here's what's going to happen in the future on an HBO show. That, he's very much a part of this now, and I feel like is trying to step up even more. Oh, I know this is going to happen. I have this responsibility. I'm going to basically be a legit prince / future king, whether they like it or not, and make a lot of promises. And you basically have a three-way power struggle of sorts. Rhaenyra is the one who is the actual one. Daemon is basically now going around saying, well, I'm actually going to be the king. Yeah. And then you have Jace, who's very much like, let's go ahead and give me that power. Now I'm not going to kill my mom to get it, but I'm already going to take the power, have that power hungry stance. Yeah. Basically,
way overconfident that he has leverage when he does not yet.
Now, ultimately making the best suggestion so far at the end of the episode by saying, hey, let's go look at the records and find anybody that's got that blood because we got to have every dragon. And that's where it's going to start getting interesting. That's where Master of Spoilers has looked forward and realized, some of these this is something
characters.
I'm looking forward to this happening. And they ended with that. So that's what made the episode kind of like, yeah, it's a downer after a crazy dragon fight last week. I kind of get it. And then at the end, it's like, oh, they're going to go. And then it ended, I thought, a little too prematurely for where that story was going. But hopefully it picks up and we'll see. But Jace is not doing things the right way, but ultimately I think he's going to be a benefit for things because there has to be somebody powerful who's willing to go out, and Rhaenyra's not doing that right now.
I think he feels like, what do we have to lose by making promises? If we don't end up winning this war anyway, we're not going to be able to live up to it. So let's just promise the world. Tyler, episode 5 I thought was the weakest of the ones we've gotten in season 2. I still overall liked it, but it did feel like a downshift. You felt the same way.
Yeah, I felt this was a lot slower and not the kind of slow I prefer from Game of Thrones. But I wouldn't say I'm selling stock in the series or anything. It's just a weaker episode than the rest. When everything else is like a 9.5 to a 10, and then you get a 7.5 to an 8. And it looks real bad.
Let's pull back the curtain. If they had to cut the budget on this episode in order to give us what they gave us in episode 4, fine. It's a good deal.
That's a fair trade.
I'll take it. That works for me. Pavlik, final word here on episode 5. Anything we may have missed in the discussion?
Here's where I think we already know that we're going to have a season 3. This is correct.
Yep.
No, we don't know about a season 4. We think
season 3 is confirmed, and I would assume it's going to be the last.
Okay, so let's think about timeline of House of the Dragon. You've had a full season 1. You're going to have a full season 3. There's 8 episodes in season 2. Mm-hmm. So the death of the queen who never was,
Rhaenys.
was the exact midpoint of this whole series. And I think what you saw now we're kicking off the second half, women leaders being at their weakest or lowest point. Because both Team Green and Team Black, the female leaders in the clubhouse, if you will,
They're not respected by the councils.
they're not
a part of.
respected. They're overlooked again and again. And I feel these women who we followed their journey of rise in the first season, a little bit of dip through tragic events. Now they're just at rock bottom. And I think what you're going to see is that rebuild over the next season and a half, because there's a reason why those two ladies are the poster of the Game of Thrones on HBO Max and all this stuff. Something has to start building with the power of them over these next 4 episodes going into a third season. I think the rise of the strong female is coming. They had to be at their lowest here in this episode.
We have not really gotten a chance to talk with you throughout this season. We appreciate you being here. Yeah. Why does House of the Dragon work so well as a spinoff to Game of Thrones? Because it seems to be very over with the Game of Thrones crowd at a time where other properties aren't able to get prequels that are up off the ground that people can actually absorb and enjoy.
It has done the things that you want a prequel to do. You have callbacks, names, families, little bits of, oh, maybe that's where the Starks got their name from, or, oh, there's the phrase. You know, when you heard the Frey name last night, don't tell me you didn't cringe and be like, here we go. You know, the only thing that we're missing is a hint of the Dothraki coming, if we're talking about town folk and common folk. Are the Dothraki on the rise, you know, stuff.
How about the free folk?
The free folk,
we
you know,
did get
just
some
these,
Stark
these
mention
names,
in this.
yeah.
You know, we're going back to the Starks just a little bit, teasing that that's going to be a...
The Winterfell theme when you saw the wall. So it does a good job of, if you were so into Game of Thrones, those little callbacks are going to keep you interested. The storytelling is still great. You know what's going to happen because we've seen what's going to happen. By the way, all this that we're bickering and arguing about results in Bran the Broken. Just keep that in mind as we temper our expectations for how this all works out. But it's still a fun, how did we get to this point? And then you do have... sadly, what I think mirrors a lot of what's going on in our country these days. We won't go too far into that, but I think the reason why it's striking so hard now is you have two sides heavily feuding against each other. Tragic events, sadly, at the airing of this taping kind of caused things to go different directions we weren't expecting. So there's this past callback of a great all-time series. There's this future look of what is going to happen and how is it going to play out, especially for Master of Spoilers and other people who have read the book. But then there's almost this real-life mirroring that's kind of going on in our world right now, and that's really interesting that they couldn't have imagined, but it is helping with it, I do think.
They've really, out of the 5 episodes we've seen this season, 4 of them have been political chess, and it's been riveting. One of them has been dragon on dragon on dragon violence, but 4 of these have been plotting, characters trying to think out their next 5 moves, and each one of them can get tough to keep up with which character's thinking the hardest because there are so many different perspectives. John, this is a series that so far has not yet had a misfire.
I would agree. In every episode, you've had something action happen at the end. You had Blood and Cheese, then you had the twins, you had the dragons. Like, this one is one that ended on, hey, things are about to, we're about to see a bunch more dragons and everything, but we didn't really get anything from it.
If it was on cable, it'd be that cliffhanger where you couldn't wait till the next week. It would be the in 2 weeks. Something come up kind of.
It ended on a plan, an idea of a plan, a spark of a plan.
But you've at least had some kind of action for the most part at the end of all the other episodes, which is why I guess people came away from it thinking, we didn't get any action this week. And you kind of felt like it was, for lack of a better term, boring, but it wasn't. Like Tyler said, it gets to like an 8 out of 10 instead of a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10, and we're all of a sudden saying, well, that wasn't quite as good.
The most physical this episode got is when they cut the cheese. I've been waiting to say that all episode.
Yeah, finally. That was one thing I think we all agreed with Aemond. Cut the blinking rat catchers down. How many more times we're going to have to... That dog had been waiting a long time.
And the dog was still there.
The dog was like, good, I can go home.
My gosh. For those craving action, visit our title sponsor, John. That's MyBookie.
Maybe there'll be odds on whether we'll see the dog again. Who knows? Go to mybookie.ag. Use that promo code next round. Get a first deposit bonus on us. Bet in the sports book. Bet in the casino. Play that live casino. Real dealers. Real cards. Real roulette wheels. Go to mybookie.ag.
Rat, I guess I should say Blood and Cheese. They punted the dog way easier than the punting mechanics so far in NCAA 25. We'll have content for that all week long. Probably not the best pun there to make on the punt joke. Finally got John to laugh just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and say that's it for House of the Dragon, episode 5. What did you think of this episode of the season? Brian, we appreciate you being here with us as you continue to follow along all season long.
Absolutely.
And we will continue to bring you all the latest reactions as we have 3 episodes remaining. Episodes 6, 7, and 8 of this season of House of the Dragon. It's sure to be an explosive one. We'll be covering it right here on The Meltdown.